Well, you know, there's a report today that the Chinese are putting some sort of batteries on one of these islands that they've made in the South China Sea. It's a very disturbing thing for me to see. You know, the Chinese, I don't know what they're thinking about this kind of aggression, and some believe they're looking for raw materials or whatever, but we just can't look the other way. And you know, I know that our friends in Asia are going to have to think about what the appropriate response will be to the Chinese. I mean, there's going to be a decision coming in The Hague about whether they own the South China Sea and these islands, and we need to honor that. But I think we have to warn the Chinese that this is just not acceptable. An escalation is not acceptable, and there are options that we and our friends can take in the Pacific to make it clear to the Chinese that we're not going to tolerate this kind of aggressive behavior. In terms of all the things that we can do, I think it's best to leave those things unsaid. But we do have leverage, and we do have options. And the Chinese have got to knock this off. This idea of expansion or flexing their muscle is a big mistake on their part. We don't need to make them enemies, but they've got to stop this. So we'll see what happens over the next few days, but the United States has to be active in terms of gathering people and expressing our deep concern about these, frankly, international water violations by the Chinese.
Governor, what's your position on the fight that's brewing between Apple and the federal government over privacy and access to cell phone data?
Yeah, I think it's very unfortunate that this discussion and this debate is occurring in public. I think it's a very serious matter, and the less we say about it, the better. And I was asked this question in a debate, and I refused to get into it, because the issue of encryption is a serious one. It needs to be not talked about anymore, and I don't want to contribute to the conversation.
Further on that, do you think Apple should help the government hack into the San Bernardino shooter's iPhone, or do you think it's an example of government overreach?
No, I don't think it's an example of government overreach to say that you know, we had terrorists here on our soil, and we've got to understand more detail about who they may have been communicating with. But this all gets down to the issue of encryption, the backdoor access. And if one group gets backdoor access, does another group get backdoor access? I actually believe that in talking to people who are experts in this field, that there are answers, but they are not to be discussed in public. I mean, we need to do this quietly somewhere and resolve the differences that exist. And some of these things just shouldn't be talked about out here. And if I were president, I wouldn't be, and I wouldn't be commenting. I just solved the problem. The other thing that this brings to light, though, is the need for people who are vigilant. You know, I don't mean we don't have to be paranoid, but people who can see the probability of some terrible action being taken by a lone wolf. You know, there was a neighbor that saw the buildup of weapons. We had a father who didn't say anything about the radicalization of his son. And, you know, the lone wolves or the small groups are the hardest ones to be able to track. And so it's going to take all of us participating with law enforcement that the issue of encryption is real. But let's just forget talking about this out here in the public. And the last thing we need is a dispute between Apple and the United States government. Just get it resolved.
We got time for two more.
Switching tacks a little bit, you're here in South Carolina. What can you do for the voters here in the Palmetto State?
Get the economy moving again all over the country, you know, and if you can get the economy moving again and create jobs, and you're going to begin to see wages uptick, which is what we also need. And you know, the fact of the matter is we need to have less regulation. Not no regulation, but less common sense. We need to cut taxes for business and individuals, and we need to get on a path to balancing a budget. And if we do that, we're going to definitely be in a position where we're going to see significant economic growth. I did it in Washington, I've done it in Ohio, and I want to go back to Washington to do it again. And the other message that I would give folks is that, you know, as our economy begins to do better, I don't believe we should leave anybody behind, not the mentally ill, the drug addicted, the working poor. These are things that we need to make sure that everybody has a chance to rise, including our friends in the minority community.
Governor, one more.
What do you think is your biggest obstacle to success in the primary here in South Carolina?
Just not known as much as I would like to be. I mean, there's only so much time, and but we're getting, you know, great enthusiasm, great attendance at all of our town halls. It's been great, but you know, it's limited time is the greatest challenge. So hopefully we'll we'll do better than what's expected here, because I don't think people expected me to do squat, and I think we'll do better than squat, but we'll see. And but we're here, we're going to be moving on. I was in Michigan yesterday, which is a really important state. I'm headed to New York tonight to raise a little bit of money and do the Colbert Show, and which is always, we'll see, hopefully fun. And then I'll be back down tonight, and we're going to just work all the way through the election here, and then we're on upward and onward to other places.
All right, thank you.